I think it's safe to say David fell victim to some temptation here, noticing the unusual beauty of Bathsheba. But he wasn't even really supposed to be there. He was supposed to be out fighting, like it mentioned in the first verse. So he kind of set himself up in a way for a situation like this. Unfortunately, a lot of people do when, they just get tired or they feel like they want to mix things up a little bit or whatever. We often unintentionally kind of set ourselves up to be in bad situations, or at least situations that lead to us doing things that maybe we shouldn't. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. All right. So we're looking at 2 Samuel chapter 11, and so David is king of Israel. His opposition has been pretty much crumbling before him. First in first in regard to actual opposition to his throne from within Israel, but then also opposition from other kingdoms around Israel at this time. So last chapter in particular was about a bunch of other kingdoms trying to get together and fight against Israel, but they were unsuccessful. So with all this combat having recently happened, we get into chapter 11 here. So here we go. In the spring of the year, when kings normally go out to war, David sent Joab and the Israelite army to fight the Ammonites. They destroyed the Ammonite army and laid siege to the city of Rabbah. However, David stayed behind in Jerusalem. Okay, so the last chapter, it even specifically mentioned the Ammonites being who they were fighting against. And maybe there was a little bit more fighting still to do. Maybe this was part of that same series of events. I don't know. But it says right here, when kings normally go out to war, but then it's also saying David stayed behind. So we'll see what David does with his unusual choice, I guess you might say. Quick note before we do that, though. Hebrews says, at the turn of the year, first day of the year in the ancient Hebrew lunar calendar occurred in March or April. So, yeah. Basically, that actually gives me a sense of, how people make New Year's resolutions to go to the gym and get in shape and do other things like that. Maybe not resolution style, but it seems almost like, this would be when kings normally got the gumption to be like, okay, new year, let's go conquer some stuff. All right, on to verse 2. Late one afternoon, after his midday rest, David got out of bed and was walking on the roof of the palace. As he looked out over the city, he noticed a woman of unusual beauty taking a bath. He sent someone to find out who she was, and he was told, she is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, and the wife of Uriah the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her, and when she came to the palace, he slept with her. She had just completed the purification rites after having her menstrual period. Then she returned home. Later, when Bathsheba discovered that she was pregnant, she sent David a message saying, I'm pregnant. So, this was a rare case of David not behaving how he should have been. Bathsheba was already married. They were not supposed to, have relations like that with another man's wife. And yet, like, this is the king, he's got power, so he kind of, maybe in a sense, takes advantage of that. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say David fell victim to some temptation here, noticing the unusual beauty of Bathsheba. But he wasn't even really supposed to be there. He was supposed to be out fighting, like it mentioned in the first verse. So he kind of set himself up in a way for a situation like this. Unfortunately, a lot of people do when, you know, they just get tired or they feel like they want to mix things up a little bit or whatever. Like, we often unintentionally kind of set ourselves up to be in bad situations, or at least situations that lead to us doing things that maybe we shouldn't. So then, because David slept with Bathsheba, Bathsheba gets pregnant and has informed David as much now. Alright. I think I will move along to verse 6 here then. Then David sent word to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." So Joab sent him to David. When Uriah arrived, David asked him how Joab and the army were getting along and how the war was progressing. Then he told Uriah, "Go on home and relax." David even sent a gift to Uriah after he had left the palace. But Uriah didn't go home. He slept that night at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. So, Uriah is Bathsheba's husband. Reminder. So, David is... I mean, it's not saying it yet, but David's trying to get him to go home to his wife and probably, you know, cover up the fact that Bathsheba got pregnant by David. Note here, Hebrews says, "and wash your feet." I guess rather than go on home and relax, it would be go home and wash your feet. An expression that may also have a connotation of ritualistic washing, which would be a little bit ironic and or kind of fitting, because when he saw Bathsheba, she was bathing, aka washing herself. So the washing there would be just, I don't know, an interesting tie-in to the whole Bathsheba situation. But Uriah doesn't do what David expects. He doesn't go home and instead sleeps with the palace guard. Or sleeps in the area of the palace guard. It mentioned David sleeping with Bathsheba earlier. Not the same kind of sleeping with people that Uriah is doing here. Slept in the presence of. Anyway. Alright, verse 10. When David heard that Uriah had not gone home, he summoned him and asked, "What's the matter? Why didn't you go home last night after being away for so long?" Uriah replied, "The ark and the enemies of Israel and Judah are living in tents, and Joab and my master's men are camping in the open fields. How could I go home to wine and dine and sleep with my wife? I swear that I would never do such a thing." "Well, stay here today," David told him, "and tomorrow you may return to the army." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. Then David invited him to dinner and got him drunk. But even then, he couldn't get Uriah to go home to his wife. Again, he slept at the palace entrance with the king's palace guard. So, yeah, now David's really trying hard to get Uriah to go home with Bathsheba so, you know, they can... so that he would basically provide a cover for David's wrongdoing. But Uriah still doesn't go with the plan that David has schemed up in his head. Note there. It just says at Succoth, which the Ark and the armies of Israel and Judah are at Succoth, I guess is what it would say. But I mean, they were engaged in battle. They're not in like any kind of permanent fixture. Obviously, you don't make permanent fixtures when you're, going out to war. So, as a show of, like, fidelity with his fellow soldiers, that's why Uriah wouldn't go home. Or maybe solidarity is a better word there. I don't know. Either way. As a show of sympathy toward the situation of his fellow soldiers, Uriah didn't go home, even when he was drunk. All right. Moving on to verse 14. So the next morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and gave it to Uriah to deliver. The letter instructed Joab, "Station Uriah on the front lines where the battle is fiercest. Then pull back so that he will be killed." So Joab assigned Uriah to a spot close to the city wall where he knew the enemy's strongest men were fighting. And when the enemy soldiers came out of the city to fight, Uriah the Hittite was killed along with several other Israelite soldiers. Well, now David is trying to cover up one wrong with another. It just takes a little bit for things to start, like, kind of falling apart. And of course, Joab, I mean, if that's all that was said in the letter, like, Joab, for all we know, had no clue why David wanted him to do this. Maybe he thought that David found out something about Uriah that was worthy of his death. We don't know. We don't know if he knew. And obviously the point would be not to tell Uriah of this plan, because otherwise he would just fall back with everybody else. But, yeah. So David, even though he doesn't directly kill Uriah, he's kind of responsible for Uriah dying in battle. And then we get to verse 18. Then Joab sent a battle report to David. He told his messenger, "Report all the news of the battle to the king." But he might get angry and ask, "Why did the troops go so close to the city? Didn't they know there would be shooting from the walls? Wasn't Abimelech, son of Gideon, killed at Thebes by a woman who threw a millstone down on him from the wall? Why would you get so close to the wall? Then tell him Uriah the Hittite was killed too." Okay, so this might have been Joab just explaining how Uriah got killed. But also, I imagine battle reports from time to time were pretty common. So, in that, it might seem questionable for them to go so close to the walls like that because of things that have happened in previous battles where people died from things being dropped from the wall. And, Joab tells the messenger, like, "Hey, we got close to the wall, but Uriah was killed. So, hopefully that's, still satisfactory. We did what you asked, essentially." Note there at Abimelech, son of Gideon, Hebrew says son of Jerub-Besheth. Jerub-Besheth is a variation on the name Jerubbaal, which is another name for Gideon. Okay. Right. Yeah, this actually flashes back to Judges and some stuff that happened in there. There was a battle, and I guess Abimelech was involved in it. There was a battle where, it happened at like a fortress or a tower or something like that, and literally he died from someone just dropping or throwing a stone down from the wall, and it crushed him and killed him. So David probably, or at least Joab, knows that it's a bad idea. He probably knows David knows it's a bad idea, but I guess they're going to justify it with Uriah's death per David's request. Anyway, so then we get to verse 22. So the messenger went to Jerusalem and gave a complete report to David. The enemy came out against us in the open fields, he said. And as we chased them back to the city gate, the archers on the wall shot arrows at us. Some of the king's men were killed, including Uriah the Hittite. Well, tell Joab not to be discouraged, David said. The sword devours this one today and that one tomorrow. Fight harder next time and conquer the city. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. When the period of her mourning was over, David sent for her and brought her to the palace, and she became one of his wives. Then she gave birth to a son, but the Lord was displeased with what David had done. Yeah, the Lord was displeased. He slept with another man's wife, and then tried to cover it up by getting him drunk. And then when that didn't work, had the guy killed. I'm pretty sure that's 3 different commands that were, in a way, broken by David there. And it was only possible, really, because David didn't go out to war like he normally would have. But yeah, the messenger gives the report to David. David's like, hey, well, okay, things happen sometimes. Do better next time. And then Bathsheba hears about Uriah's death. And then a little while later, it doesn't say particularly how long, but it says basically after she was done mourning that David then took Bathsheba as his wife. At least that part was a little bit more responsible. But, yeah. This is the first chapter where we've gotten a not so good look at David. Because pretty much everything he had done up to this point was, above board, so to speak. So, anyway, I don't really have too many other thoughts on the chapter. Just, yeah. Watch what you're doing, what you're thinking, what kind of situations you're putting yourself in. Okay, so, long story short, David done goofed. Yeah, multiple things in there that David should not have done. This is part 1, I would say, of what's primarily a 2-part story that will wrap up in the next chapter. So, if you want to hear a little more about how this all resolves, stay tuned for that, which should be coming pretty soon. But, yeah, don't think David's going to get away scot-free with this just because, he's the king or whatever. But that's all I got for now. So as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates and help you keep track of any videos I post and other things like that. Make sure you look down in the description to get info on social media pages and links to find and follow those. And of course, leave comments down below all that with any thoughts you have. So that'll do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, until next time, stay cool, people.